Welcome to another PFL Tuts tutorial. Today guys, we are going to be making a really cool little drone character in Element 3D with After Effects. So let's just go ahead and name this composition drone. Right click, go to new, and we're going to create a solid, and we're just going to call this drone model. And we're going to go ahead and right click, go to effect, down to video, copilot, and element. Now, one of the things that I really wanted to show with element, while I kind of do a little bit of a review for it, is to actually be able to show you guys how cool Element version 2 is, because you can actually literally model things in the 3D space now, so it's really cool. So let's go ahead and start off with our base. So I'm going to start off here with a sphere model, and I'm going to go ahead and lift that up a little bit, maybe a little tiny bit more, to about like that, and that looks pretty good there. So let's go ahead and first we're going to name our group folder here, and we're just going to put this to drone model 01, and then we'll rename this to drone body. And let's just go ahead and drop a material onto this real quick. I'm just going to simply drop on the black gloss for now, and it's a little too shiny, but we'll get into the materials and all that a little bit later. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and make our eyepiece to start out with. So I'm going to go over here to create a tube just like this, and you'll see here it's down way too far, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that up, go to rotate, hold down shift, and I can then rotate that on my axis pretty easily. I'll then go ahead and scale that down, and then I want to move that on the z-axis forward. And that's still too big, so let's go ahead and scale it down a little bit more. So about like that, I'm thinking is probably going to be pretty good to what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and make that extrude just out a little tiny bit more, so something about like that. And that's actually looking, pretty good, honestly. I'm honestly pretty happy with that. But let's go ahead and make that smaller first. So the reason I want to make it smaller is, well, I'll show you why here in a second. But let's go ahead and go to bright light, and let's just drop that on that model. And that's going to be the light. Now we need to create the outside edges, so let's go ahead and create one of these tubes here. We will rotate this same exact way we did the other thing. We'll go ahead and scale this down quite a bit. Move it down a little bit and forward. Alright, so let's go ahead and keep scaling this down because it just doesn't need to be quite that big. That's looking pretty good there. And what this allows us to do is now we can, decide how big of an eye socket that we actually want. So I'm just going to leave it like that for now, and I'll go ahead and drop the gloss black onto that. I'll then go ahead and adjust the, not the radius here. Let's go to the material black gloss. That looks okay actually, so I'll leave that alone. And we're going to go ahead and put these sides down to something like 15. And then the chamfered edge, we'll do a little bit more. Let's go ahead and put this at 25. This doesn't need to be as high as we had it before, and that looks pretty good there with that edge on there. Makes it look like it kind of belongs on the model, so I'm liking the way that looks. Now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and rename this one here to eye, and then we'll rename this one here to lens. I'm going to go ahead and go to the eye, go to the bright light material. We're not really going to do a whole lot on this, but I know that I'm going to want this to be kind of like a bluish color, so I'll go ahead and start by just making that blue for now. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Now, so far we've done some basic modeling on our character, but what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're actually going to create some different segments for this model. But to do this, what I've decided I want to do is I actually want to create some legs for this guy that is going to have some wheels on it, some actual wheels on the model at the bottom, and then it's going to connect over here into the side. So what we're going to go ahead and do is go ahead and create another cylinder tube here, and we're going to go ahead and rotate this to where it is flat just like this. We'll then go ahead and move this over, and we want to scale this way down, so something about like this, I guess. And then I want to scale this in this way. And now I'm going to move this straight up. I'm I'm going to kind of look at the side of my model here, and I want to make this be kind of a little bit higher than halfway. And now we're going to go ahead and move that in to where all of the sides of this model are actually protruding into the black sphere model. So right about there actually looks pretty good. And we'll go ahead and make that gloss black as well. Now I want to duplicate this model, but before I do that, I'm going to rename this to leg joint left leg. And then we're going to go ahead and duplicate this model, and we'll rename this one to right instead of left. So just like that. Now what I want to do is go over here to the position, and whoops. What I want to do is go in here and just put a negative in here, and that'll basically mirror it onto the other side of my model entirely. So as you can see there, we're kind of getting a little bit of a start to this model. And it's nowhere near done yet, but I did want to go ahead and just start there. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And you can see our model has shown up there. Now we're going to go ahead and hide that real quick and create a new solid. And this is going to be leg mask. Now once we're here, we're going to use our pen tool, and we're actually going to draw out the shape that we want for our leg. So we're just going to kind of go a little bit crazy here with this, but basically I want to start out by kind of going up like this, and then I want to alt click. Alt click? No. Okay, so then we want to come down here to right in here, and I kind of want to bring this shape out. And we're going to straighten all these out, so it's not really a big deal. And then I want to take out that shape there a little bit, and then I'll complete it. Now what I can do is go back in here, add some more points so that I can kind of smooth this out and make it look the way that I want. I went ahead and put a point down here, and I'm just going to move that point up a little bit so it kind of has a little bit of a bend in it. And then this point here, I want to straighten that out a little bit more. This one here I'll do the same with, so that I have kind of like a rounded edged shape here, just like this. And I think that looks pretty darn good if you ask me. So now we're going to go over here to the delete vertex tool, and I want to, oops, wrong one. Let's go ahead and use our rounded rectangle tool here. And I'm going to keep that layer active, but I'm going to go to solid again, and I'm going to type in leg mask rivets, and I'll hit OK on that. And then I'll simply want to go over here to overlay, and now if I drag out a selection kind of like this, I can then position that whole thing, so something kind of like that. I'll copy and paste this mask, and it's not wanting to duplicate, so I'm not really sure why. Alright, so how do I get this to duplicate? This is not working. I don't understand. Not sure what's going on with that. So let's just delete that real quick, go back to this one. We'll drag out this shape here, and we'll change this over to subtract. So now we're able to subtract out of this specific selection here with this one. And let's go ahead and use the rotate tool to, or we can just use our pen tool, I guess. And I just want to bring that up a little bit, so kind of like that. And let's go ahead and make another one here, slightly bigger. Not too much bigger, but a little bit. And we'll go ahead and select those points, move those up to there. We'll take these ones, move them down to there, mask, and go to mode, subtract, create another new one, do the exact same thing over again. And that's looking pretty good, so we'll bring this one over here, something like that. Mask, mode, subtract. That looks pretty good. So now we have that mask done. We can go ahead and hide that, go back to the element layer, click on it, go down to custom layers, custom text and masks, path layer 1, we will put to leg mask, go to scene setup. We can then hit extrude, and you'll see there that our leg model is now on our extrusion here. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this way, and you can see exactly what's going on with that position and the rotation and orientation and all that. You can see it's on 90 degrees there. So we're going to go ahead and drag this over to here. Now this needs to be smaller, so we're going to go ahead and make this whole thing smaller, and then we'll move it up. And I basically just want to get it to align with that piece that I already made over here. So let's go back a little bit more and up just a little bit. So something kind of like that looks pretty good. I'll then rotate that whole thing outwards kind of a little bit. Once I've done that, I'll then move it out to where it's kind of like intersecting a little bit, and I'll move it up just a tad bit more. That looks pretty good there. So fix holes, we'll leave that on, and then also I want to go to my depth segments here, and we can leave that alone for now. Let's go to the bevel scale, and we can bevel it more or less depending on what we want. I know that I want this to be a little bit sharper, so I'll go to something like 2.5 on that. Let's go ahead and drop the black gloss on that, just so we can kind of see how it's all looking, and that's looking pretty good right there. Alright, so now that we have that done, let's go ahead and make a second bevel copy. Go ahead and drop this down here. You have bevel 2, and actually, you know what? Let's undo that. Let's just go back to this first one here. Go down here, and we can work on the extrusion here a little bit. Make that a little bit thicker, expand the edges a little tiny bit. So something like 2. Bevel size we were working on before. I'm kind of happy with that. Bevel segments, we can up that to say 10. Bevel curve, we can adjust that. And that looks pretty good there. And then the bevel depth, we can adjust that, see what goes on. Alright, so that's looking pretty good there. So now we have like this inset almost like bevel going on. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. You can see that that's going the opposite way that we want. So we'll go to the bevel depth. Bring that out. And we'll adjust that expand of the edges now a little bit. There we go. So now we have a little bit more detail there in that leg, as you can see. Looking a whole lot better. I'm liking where this is going for right now. So I think I'm going to stick with that. So let's go ahead and duplicate that model. And then I want to go over here to the position, and I simply want to put a negative value in here. And you'll see that that kind of adjusts it for us and makes it look pretty good. And now I can actually go to flip it on the x-axis, and then on this position here we'll put that to negative as well. And now we have a model that is lined up this way, the right way, so now we just have to worry about the orientation. So flip this one. Nope, not that one. I always forget which one it is. And it's definitely this one, so I don't know why that is not flipping the right way. There we go. Alright, so now we got those two lined up on the model like they should be. And that's looking pretty good so far. I'm liking where this is going. So let's go ahead and go down to plastic white. And I want to go ahead and drop the plastic white onto these. Well, actually, you know what? Let's just leave the black on there. And let's do this here instead. Let's go to these materials. We can change the diffuse color to like white in here instead, and this will actually make it to where we can keep the reflections from that black gloss material on this, even though you can't really see it. Put the environment on, and then if you rotate the environment, you can see it right there. We have our reflection going on, so that's pretty cool. Alright, so we'll take the environment back off. We'll make this be solid black. And so far, I'm liking where this is going. Alright, so let's go ahead and rename this to leg left, and we'll rename this one to leg right. Alright, that's looking really, really good. So far, I'm liking this model. Alright, so now we're going to go to create, and we're going to create some of these little donuts. And we're going to rotate this to where it's nice and straight. And I'm going to scale it way, way down. So something like that. I'm going to put on plastic matte just so it's darker. And then I want to go ahead and move this so it gets to be lined up with my model. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and scale this up now a little bit now that we kind of got it placed a little bit better. So kind of like that. Alright, so now that we got that, we're going to move this forward this way. A little bit more. And then I'm just going to simply drag this straight back with the Alt key. And then straight back again with the Alt key. So now we have 3 wheels on that side. I'll select all of them, and I will then create them on the other side. They don't have to be perfectly lined up, they just need to be in the vicinity, so something like that. And I didn't get all of them apparently. So let's go ahead and select all of these. There we go, that's a little bit better. Get those lined up about right there. And they need to go forward some by the looks of it. So let's change this over to left view. And those are definitely lined up, so that's not what's off. It's the leg here. Alright, that's better. There we go. Now we got that lined up. I mean, within like a pixel or two, so that's totally fine. Now, for all of these Taurus models, we're going to have to go in here and do some adjustment here. So the ring radius, I want to bring that down. Something like that. So I'll click on this one, paste it in there, click on this one, paste it in here, click on this one, paste it in here, click on this one, paste it here, click on this one and paste it here, go back to the top model, ring radius, copy that, paste it here, 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 go back up here, and all of these can be 30, so I don't need to actually worry about those. And there we go, that looks pretty good there. I'll select all of these wheels. I want to just move those up in a little tiny bit. Take the scale tool. Move tool, move them down just a little bit until that's not showing anymore on the outside, so like that. And now it looks like our model needs to have all of these put into a group. So we'll do that here in a second, but so far I think this is looking pretty decent. One thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and copy this drone body and paste it. That doesn't work, I'm sorry. I need to go to duplicate model, and then I'm going to rename this to drone body glow ring, and I want to simply adjust this model sum. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make it just a hair bigger, so about like that. And then the diameter, I'll leave that one alone. I want to go into the drone model here, and we'll go to scale this, and we're going to scale it. Well, before I do that, let's go ahead and throw on the bright light texture to this. And I simply want to take this and bring that ring down kind of like that. And what that's going to allow us to do is to have a nice looking glow around that, as well as the eyepiece itself, but we're going to adjust it a little bit differently. So we'll go ahead and duplicate this and make one. Let's just duplicate it over here first, duplicate model, and then we can make another one go the other direction. And go up and select the whole thing. That looks pretty sick right there. Pretty sick so far. Alright, so far I'm liking that. Let's go ahead and adjust these materials a little bit. This one here, I'm going to go down to the bottom where the glow amount is. I'm going to put that at 0.3. I'll do the same on this ring. They're actually both right there. Okay, cool. The eyes, bright light is on 1. Let's go ahead and put that at like 1.5. I'm really going to want that to shine through. I'm going to have to move this out a little bit because that other one's kind of going through the middle of it slightly. So just move it out till it's not showing anymore. That looks pretty good there. We're going to go ahead and rename this to, well actually, you know what? That's going to waste a lot of time. So let's just go up here. Let's make this smaller. New group folder, and we'll rename that to wheels. Put that on number 2. Go back into here, and we'll just drop all of these wheels into here instead. So just like that. And even though they're not showing up now, they will when we actually go to our main menu. So that's pretty cool. Alright, so now let's go to create, and let's create a box. And let's go ahead and move this up and to the back. Then we're going to rotate this box about like that. And let's go ahead and we're going to make this whole thing smaller. And we're going to go ahead and move that up now. And we'll rotate it some more. So that's almost there. We're going to go ahead and chamfer this so that it kind of gets rounded out a little bit. Something kind of like more like that. Let's go ahead and scale it this way down. That's looking pretty good. We'll drop black gloss onto that. The chamfer segments, we're going to go ahead and up that to about 20. And that'll really smooth out that portion of the model there. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and duplicate this, but before we do, we're going to rename this to Minigun. And I'll go to my move tool and I just want to move that up a little bit like that, and we'll scale it down. And then we'll move that back up just a little bit. Something like that. It's looking pretty good. Alright, so now comes the fun part. I'm going to create them all in here, and then I'm going to drop all the good ones into its own group layer as well, and you'll see why later on. So far that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK real quick and save out my document here. And real quick, let's go ahead and go to New and Camera. Create a 24mm, and then I can go to my orbit camera tool, and we can orbit around our model here so we can kind of see the whole thing almost like in finished rendered space. Bring that down a little bit. You can see there it's really starting to come together. So far it's looking pretty good. A couple of things that I see is I want to go to scene setup. I want to go back to these drone glow body rings. I want to up these segments to about 12 each, maybe even more. Let's do 20 on that. On both of those, that'll really smooth it out a lot. And then I also want to do the eye here, and I'll put the sides up to about 50, and you'll see here on the edges it'll smooth it out just a little bit. And we have some anti-alias, but we'll deal with that in a little bit. Alright, so let's go back to the minigun. Let's go ahead and create a cylinder here. We will drag that up. We will then rotate it. So about like that. We'll then scale that down. Whoops, wrong one. Scale that one down there. I will then move that back, and we're going to have to scale this down some more, so let's go ahead and do that first. So about like that. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the height a little bit. Bring that like that. We're going to have to rotate it ever so slightly to kind of get a little bit more lined up. Alright, so that's looking pretty good there. I'll go ahead and drop the black gloss onto that. Now what I want to do is I want to go to my left side view, and I want to go ahead and go to my move tool, hold down Alt, and I want to simply move this to where it's a little bit in there, and then I'm going to take my scale tool, I'm going to scale it down a little bit, just a little bit. It doesn't need to be a lot. I'm going to kind of line that up there a little bit more. Before I do that though, let's go ahead and extend the height on this one. So something more like that. I want to drop that down in. And then I want to go back to this one, duplicate that again. And this time I'm actually going to rotate it a little bit. And then we'll kind of line that up again. So kind of like that. And we're going to make that smaller. No, we'll leave that one alone, that's okay. And then I want to go ahead and duplicate this again, so I'm going to duplicate it. And this one, we're going to make a lot smaller, and we're going to extend that height out quite a bit. So about like that. We'll then move that up here on the model. And then I'm going to duplicate that down to here. I'll then go to the top view. And you can see here that both those models are lined up. So I'll select both of those, go back to perspective view. And I want to go ahead and go to my rotate tool. I'll duplicate those. And let's see here. What's the best way to do this? Probably from the front, even though it's not actually the front. Alright, so let's see here. Alright, move tool. I'm going to duplicate that to there, and then also one onto this side here. I'll then select all of those in a second. Let's go back to perspective view. You can see that we got a little bit of like a minigun action going. Move those up a little bit. And I want to rotate those downwards. Go back to the move tool. Move it out a little bit. Move it back up. Move it in a little bit more. Go back to this model, and we're simply going to go to the radius and up that a little tiny bit more. So more like that. That looks pretty good there. I'll then go back to my physical shaders, plastic white. I want to throw onto that middle one there, and I'm also going to throw it onto this outer one here. Or does it look better on the internal one? Yeah, it looks better on that one. So that's pretty good there. Alright, now I want to go ahead and go to, whoops, wrong one, create, and I want to create another cylinder here. And I'm going to go over to the scale tool. I want to scale that down quite a bit. Quite a bit indeed. And then I'll move that out. Let's go over here to the left view again. Move that bit up. I'll scale it down more. Scale it out this way a little bit. Alright, go back to perspective. And that looks pretty good. So let's go to the front view. I want to duplicate that onto each of these models here. Like that. And then I also want to duplicate it in the center. And this one here I am going to scale up. Well, let's go back to the perspective for that one. I'm going to scale that one up like that, and then back like this. Scale it up some more. And move. And now I'm going to adjust the internal radius and make that be a little bit bigger. Make the radius bigger. And I just kind of want to get that internal radius to where it's just barely touching that internal edge. And we'll go ahead and up the sides to say 60. It'll really smooth it out a lot. I'll go ahead and move that back to where the front of that is protruding out a little bit. It's kind of like that. Go back to the black gloss. That's looking pretty good there. And I'm liking that. So, yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Now what I want to do is actually take all of these internal ones so that I can eventually animate the gun spinning. So I'm going to need those. I'm going to need this, this, and this. No, not that. And there, and that one. So that eventually I can rotate that whole deal just like that. And let's go create a new group. Rename that group to Minigun Rotate. Okay, got that. Now I'm clicking on all these with the control button. It'll open them up. I can then grab those and drag those right there. And now what that will actually allow me to do, if I go to Minigun, now when I go to animate that, I can get that to rotate like an actual minigun. So that's cool. Let's go ahead and hit OK. You'll see here that now our model is really starting to look killer on this thing. Can probably still use some work with like the textures and the detailing and all that, but it is looking pretty good. So group 3, group 2, group 1. Oh, my bad. I gotta change the minigun over to number 3. I was like, why isn't that showing up? There we go. Now it's showing up. And although it's a simple model, you know, it does the job. So let's go to scene setup again. Minigun rotate. I'm going to grab my move tool. I'm just going to move that down a little tiny bit. And that looks a little bit better there. Alright. So real quick, let's go ahead and go to the render settings and go to glow. Let's enable the glow. And you'll see there that that glow now is on our bot. And we can lower the intensity down to like 1. And the soft threshold, we'll put that down to like 0.2. And glow threshold, glow radius, we'll bring that down to about there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Go ahead and go to new and light, parallel light. Let's just choose a white light for now and hit OK. And now we can adjust that parallel light to be on our model whichever way that we want it to be, which I'll go with something like that for now. And we're going to have to texture this bad boy up, but I think that that's looking fairly decent for a model completely done in Element 3D thus far. One thing that I do want to do is fix up these wheels a little bit, and then I also want to put some something in here to really kind of clean up this space, because right now it just looks very open and kind of dirty. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet, but that will be in the next lesson. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, let me know, and we'll see what happens from there. So there we go, zoom tool. I think that's looking really sick so far though. I think it looks sick. So I'll see you guys in the next lesson.